We all have dreams, but dreams by their very nature can be difficult to achieve. That's where Access Credit Union comes in. Whether it's going to college, owning a car, or building your dream home, your local credit union can help you to fulfill your dreams. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the landmark 150th episode of the Star Sport Podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star, and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we kick things off, I'd just like to give a gentle reminder to our listeners and viewers to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport Podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years. To mark our 150th show, we've gone big with our lineup today, and up first we'll be hearing from Shane Ronayne, who is giving his first interview since being named the new Cork Ladies senior football manager on a 3-year term. The Mitchelstown man, who stepped down as Waterford senior men's manager on Friday, previously guided the Tipperary ladies to All-Ireland intermediate titles in 2017 and 2019. Inside Cork, he's probably most well known for steering Mourneabbey to successive All-Ireland club titles in 2018 and 2019, as well as winning 6 provincial crowns between 2014 and 2019. Quite the CV. Later in the show, we're going to chat to Enniskeane Camogie's vice captain Aisling O'Driscoll, following their impressive start to life as a senior club. But Kieran, as I mentioned at the beginning, it is our 150th episode of the podcast, so we might as well quickly reflect on that milestone. There have been many ups and downs over the past few years, but thankfully we've managed to keep the show on the road. I don't think we've missed a week, and we couldn't have done that without the help and support of every single person who has listened to or watched an episode since we launched.
100%, Jack. It's surreal to think we're 150 episodes in. I'd say when you look back in the first episode, we were fresh faced back then. That was back in February 2019, and I was actually watching it a couple of days ago just to look back at the very first show, and Con Downing, the former Southern Star editor, was on it, and with Phil Healy after the Celtic Rosswood West Cork Sports Star Awards that ran in early 2019. And to see that we're 2.5 years on from there, and this podcast is still going strong. And when we set out, Jack, with this first, it was to tell the stories of West Cork sports people and West Cork sports teams, and almost put our local sports heroes front and centre. And we've done that week after week after week after week. Is that 150 weeks in a row or something like that we have been non-stop with this sport podcast? So like you said, it's thanks to everyone. It's thanks to every single guest who's given us their time to come on this show, whether it's a footballer or a road bowler or Ryder Cup captain Padraig Harrington or you name it, they've been on this podcast.
Yeah, Harrington is no longer a bearer man after the performance of Europe over the last few days. He's back to being a dub in my book.
Well, we might get Padraig back on at some point in the future, so I'm going to mend that bridge straight away. And hard luck to bear a man and Padraig Harrington in Western Straits last weekend. But no, we've had some super interviews and some brilliant guests on this podcast, and it's onwards and upwards. Like, this podcast is going strong for a regional newspaper to produce a top class sports podcast week after week after week, with a really high caliber lineup and really high caliber production values too, I have to say. And this is a hat tip to Jack. Jack does tremendous work on this podcast. He's the magic man. He makes it all come together. So just a big thanks to you, Jack, and to everyone who's contributed and listened and been part of this journey. And it's not over yet.
Okay, we won't pat ourselves on the back.
Oh no, we should.
Too hard, because we might fall over. But Just to, you mentioned some of the big name guests we've had. Obviously, Padraig Harrington, I said that in jest. He still is very much a Beara man, West Cork proud. But what are some of the other highlights, just in your mind off the top of your head? I know it's going to be hard. There's been 150 episodes, probably upwards of 300 guests when you take into account there was 2 and 3 and 4 on some shows. So just some of the interviews that stand out, and maybe someone who's only come to the podcast in more recent times might be able to dig back through the archives and find some gems that maybe we haven't spoken to or about since they were on the show.
The beauty of this podcast is that we're lauding West Cork sports people, and it's those at local level and those at international level. Some of the ones that stand out, Tony Stevenson, he's the banter kickboxer who won world gold, I think it was 2019, and we had him on the podcast, and it was a long chat, and he was a really, really good guest. He was so honest and open about his own career and where he's gone and what he was battling back from and so on. So that's a really good one, Tony Stevenson. Thinking back last year during our first lockdown with Conor Horan on the podcast, where he was talking about his time at Aston Villa, and he gave us his thoughts on Jack Grealish at the time, who I think was linked with a couple of clubs. And lo and behold, within 24 hours, the Keep had it, Sky Sports had it, BBC had it, and it was all traced back to the Star Sport podcast. So even though it's a West Cork sports podcast, that made international sporting headlines, our Conor Horan interview. But we've had some tremendous guests over the years. Even when you think back to the West Cork ladies and their journey from or to the top of the tree last year, they became county senior champions. So yeah, there's been so many kind of over the years. So, but like I said, we're not finished yet.
Yeah, and I just want to give one or two of my own personal highlights from the 150 episode run as well while we're at it. And I have to say, the one that always stands out to me was when we traced the history of Ireland's first world wrestling champion, Ballydehobb's Dan O'Mahony, and we were joined on the podcast by renowned wrestling journalist Dave Meltzer, who took us on basically tour through time and told us all about Dano's credentials as a world champion. So anyone who's ever driven through Ballydehobb and seen the iron statue of Dan O'Mahony and wondered what is the story behind that man, check out Dave Meltzer's interview on the Star Sport podcast. I thought that was a really interesting one. And you mentioned the journey of the West Cork ladies. I think another team's journey that we followed closely was the St. James's footballers. And when they won their Carberry Junior A football championship, and we were joined on the podcast by 3 or 4 members of the panel, and it was just great old crack, and you could really tell the emotion in the lads' voices, how much it meant to them coming from a small club and a small community. And I guess a big part of the reason we do this podcast is to tell the stories like St. James's, who otherwise wouldn't get the attention that they so richly deserve. But Kieran, a new man that we're going to be speaking to, I would say more than a few times on the podcast over the coming months, is the man we're going to speak to now. And it's the newly appointed Cork ladies football manager, Shane Ronayne, who resigned his post as Waterford's senior men's manager on Friday. Kieran, he's obviously very familiar to both you and I. We've followed the West Cork ladies story closely, as we said last year, and the team that they met in the final was Mourneabbey, a team that Shane also coached. So for listeners who aren't as familiar with Shane, could you maybe give us a little more detail about him? I know you spoke to him extensively, so he'll probably tell us a bit about himself as well, but just to give some context to the man who has been appointed to replace Aoife Fitzgerald.
Shane has a very impressive coaching and managing CV. We mentioned there Mourneabbey. He's been in charge of the Mourneabbey ladies. He's going into the 8th season, and he's overseen tremendous success with Mourneabbey. They've been a dominant force in the Cork Ladies Senior Football Championship for a number of years. West Cork have come along, and there was a fierce rivalry there for the last couple of years, and West Cork got the better of Mourneabbey last year, but that was almost the exception to the rule because Mourneabbey had the upper hand for more often than not in that rivalry. And Shane's Mourneabbey team have also won back-to-back All-Ireland senior club titles in 2018 and 2019. So they were an incredible team. But on the inter-county scene, Shane also coached the Tipperary ladies football team for 4 years, and they won 2 All-Ireland intermediate titles in that time. It took him up to senior, it took him up to Division 1 in the National League. So he oversaw a huge transformation there with the Tip ladies football team as well. You mentioned there he was in charge of the Waterford senior men's football team this past season, and it was actually a 2-year deal that he had, and he was meant to be in charge next year as well. But as you'll hear from quite soon, when the opportunity came along to become the next Cork Ladies senior football manager. It's a chance he just couldn't leave passing by. This is a job he's wanted for some time now. If you go back to, I think around 2014, he was a selector under the great Eamon Ryan. So he's been involved in Cork Ladies football for many, many years. He knows the landscape and the quality in the county better than most. So that'll stand to him going into this post. So he was ratified on a 3-year term on Monday night. So this is Shane's gig for the next 3 years. And he wants to stamp his authority on this. And he's after inheriting a team from Aoife Fitzgerald that there was so close to All-Ireland glory over the last couple of years. Even go back to this year, they lost to eventual winners Meath. They lost in the semi-final by coughing up 2-1, I think, in the closing minutes. So that's a game that Cork should have won. They eventually lost to Meath, who went on to win the All-Ireland. So just from that sport maths alone, you can take from it that Cork aren't too far away from getting back to the very, very top of this tree. So exciting times for Shane Ronayne. But we can't not mention Aoife Fitzgerald. I think he's been 6 years in charge of the Cork Senior Ladies football team. They won one All-Ireland in that time. And okay, you're looking at it, one All-Ireland in 6 years. Oh, that's not a great return considering the success Eamon Ryan had. But I'd argue on the contrary, because Aoife Fitzgerald inherited a superb and dominant Cork Ladies football team that was actually coming to the end of its life cycle. So he had to regenerate an entire new team. And it was really a transitional period where it went from the old to the new. And at that time, then the Dublin Senior Ladies football team came along, and that was a juggernaut. I think they won 4 All-Irelands in a row, 4 or 5 there, and they were the dominant force. So not only did Aoife have to inject new life, new blood, new players into the Cork Ladies football team, but he also had to deal with the blue machine on one side that was just winning all before them. So it is a Shane Ronayne era now. And that's starting, but it's worth having a hat tip to Aoife Fitzgerald. He did a great service for Cork Ladies football. Won All-Ireland, 3 Division 1 titles. I think there was 3 Munster titles in there as well. So that's 7 titles over 6 years. And he's leaving Cork Ladies football team in a good place. And hopefully now Shane Ronayne can take it on and bring the O'Duffy Cup back to Leeside again. On the Star Sport podcast, we either go big or we go home. And on our 150th episode, we're delighted to have the new Cork Ladies senior football manager, Shane Ronayne. Shane, congratulations on your new appointment and thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks very much, Kieran. Thanks for having me.
And you were ratified as the new Cork Ladies senior football manager on Monday night, and you've been given a 3-year term. So first off, how excited are you at your new role?
Yeah, look, it's fair to say I'm buzzing about it, Kieran. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'd be very ambitious as a coach and manager, and this is something that really excited me. And when the opportunity became aware that the opportunity was there to go for the job. I went for it because it's kind of like a dream come true. It wasn't easy, I suppose. I had another year left to go with Waterford, so it wasn't easy to walk away from that either. But I suppose this job was probably one of the only ones I would have left the Waterford job for, because I had a commitment made to them. But in fairness to Waterford, when I spoke to them the other night, they didn't stand in my way, and they wished me the very best of luck. So, fair play to them. I had a great working relation there with the county board and with all the players. So look, sometimes in life, Kieran, you opportunities come and you just have to go from you, because in 4 or 5 years down the line, maybe if I hadn't gone for the job, who knows where I would have been, or where Cork would have been, or what situation would have been in life. So sometimes you just have to go for it. So I think lots of people understand that, and it was too good an opportunity for me to pass up.
That's exactly it. Like, even just what you said there, like, to be the Cork manager, it was too good an opportunity for you to turn down. Like you said, you're halfway through your 2-year deal with the Waterford senior men's football team. But once you became aware that there was a chance for you to become the Cork Ladies manager, did you just feel, I just have to go for this?
Yeah, look, that's exactly it. Look, it was it's 6 years since there's been a change of manager in Cork, and that's a long time. And I suppose it just, when the opportunity came up, like lots of people, I suppose, were onto me, contacting me, was going to put my name in the hat, and I suppose I was going to be linked to it anyway. I was linked to it there a couple of years ago when Aoife's last term was up, and I suppose I was with Tip at the time, and we were in All-Ireland final at the time, so it just didn't feel the right opportunity to be stepping away. But look, it came around this time, and I said I had to go for that. I'd regret it if I didn't. So look, it's all worked out, and hopefully it'll my decision will be both beneficial to myself and to Cork.
When you look at your GA coaching CV, obviously you've done incredible things at Mourneabbey, the dominant force in Cork Ladies Club football over the last couple of years, back-to-back All-Ireland champions. And as well, you did great things with the Tip Ladies senior football team as well. You had 4 years there. I think there was 2 intermediate All-Irelands, took them up to Division 1, took them up to senior. You've a stacked CV, and then obviously with Waterford. So do you feel the time is right for you now to take on the Cork job, that you've served your apprenticeship with the greatest respect to those other roles, but now you're ready to step up and be the Cork manager?
Yeah, look, I think sometimes you might come into a role too soon in your managerial career or coaching career, and mightn't. You see that often in the Premiership. There, maybe managers aren't quite ready. Sometimes they are, and they get lucky. But I think I've, as you said, I think I've served a very good apprenticeship with I've learned, a good learning curve with all those teams, and the experiences of winning and losing and the highs and lows with both Mourneabbey and with Tipperary. There was huge excitement days, great days, but there was other days when things went against us, and I think you learn a lot from those days. And I think certainly in the last 6 years, both as a coach, manager, and a person, I think I've matured. I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning. And I think look, you're what you're saying there about the time is right. I think the time is right for me to have a go at it, and I'm really looking forward to it, Kieran.
Just on Mourneabbey for a second, like I said, you've had incredible success with the club for over the last couple of years. Can you juggle both roles now, like Cork senior boss and Mourneabbey manager, or are you going to step aside as Mourneabbey manager at the end of this season?
Look, the way it always works with Mourneabbey, Kieran, year to year we go, and look, I'm going to finish out this season. I hope it's going to be a long season for us. There's a Cork County Championship. If we happen to be successful in that, there's a Munster campaign, there's an All-Ireland campaign after Christmas. So look, I'm well capable of I've been very busy before. I had Mourneabbey and I had Tip going, and then another year I had Mitchelstown men as well. So I had 3 teams on the go. So look, I'm well versed in working on that, and look, we'll make a decision at after the end of the year with Mourneabbey as to how we can go forward with that. It mightn't be possible to do both, and if that's the way, I don't think anyone Mourneabbey will stand in my way. They'll be, I have a fierce affection for the place, and I'd hate to be stepping away from it. But look, if it's possible, we walk around in a split season, then might help as well. But I'm not making, I suppose, any predictions or commitments to after this year, because this will be my 8th year involved with Mourneabbey. So I don't know what the future will hold with that. Every year we have a conversation in Mourneabbey, myself, the club, and the players, and we feel maybe is it like 7-8 years is a long time with any team. So I'm always open to. Even like after we won the 2019 All-Ireland, go back to back, like that week after we won it, we had a conversation like, look, do you feel it's time for me to step aside now, lads? Look, we've a lot done, and but look, they wanted me to carry on. So we'll have that conversation at the end of the year, and look, if it's not possible to do it, it's not possible to do it. But look, we'll see at the end of the year. I'm not going to make any decision on that yet. But I suppose the one thing I'd have to say there, Kieran, is that if I'm with a team, I'm with a team, and I suppose I can park any there could be talk of conflicts of interest and all that. I think it doesn't matter who you are or what team you're with in Cork. As far as I'm concerned, if you're good enough to play for Cork, you're going to be playing, and if you need to be better, then you won't be playing and things like that. So I think that's the way I've always operated in UCC. I was with UCC, and I was also with Tip, and I was with Cork for a while as well when I was with UCC, and there would have been Cork players and Tipperary players sitting on the sideline, because there was better players, or in better form, I suppose, at the time. So I don't, none of the players expect me to be loyal when I shouldn't be loyal to them. But I think I'm well able to juggle the roles at the moment, and it's going to be a busy few months. Getting things going with Cork, and with hopefully with a long season with Mourneabbey. But I've done it before, and hopefully I can manage it away for the time being anyway. And then we'll review it then, because I certainly learned over lockdown, Kieran, that you have to give time to yourself as well. And I think there's no point trying to overdo things, because I think everybody suffers. Then you suffer yourself, the team suffer, and I certainly, when lockdown came the first time, I was probably a bit burnt out. It was actually a relief there for a couple of months not to have anything to do, because I had been on the go for 6 or 7 years with 3 and 4 teams, and that's hard to keep going. And I think I've learned that valuable lesson, I think, over lockdown, that that you have to give time to yourself as well to replenish yourself and to reflect and make sure that you're at tip-top condition to be doing, your job as the manager of the team.
The Mourneabbey contingent and the players in Cork obviously didn't know you so well over the last couple of years, but what can the Cork players from other parts of the county, what can they expect from a Shane Ronayne team in terms of philosophies, training, preparation? How would you describe your style of management?
Look, I suppose I'd describe myself as very professional, very organised. I think that I'm a good motivator. I think I can get a lot out of players wherever I've been. I suppose I've been able to, motivate the players to do what I want them to do. And I think there's so much potential in Cork. There's so many good young players there, and I think the enthusiasm and passion I think I bring to Kieran. Look, sometimes that passion goes overboard, but that's because I'm so invested in what I'm doing. Like it'll be full time, and school nearly becomes I suppose a hobby, and the managing becomes the job, even though you're not being paid to do the managing job. So it'll be just the biggest thing with me is enthusiasm, passion, but I'm very organized, and I'm very, I suppose, professional in what I do and try to make sure that every angle is covered. And look, every manager says that, but I'm sure that, I feel that I can bring maybe that extra bit to it, and it's going to be a new voice for a lot of them. A good few of them I would have worked with before. The older crew I would have worked with them in Cork when Eamon was there. And a lot of them I would have seen through the years in UCC as well. So I'd know most of them, the younger players, obviously, the minors of the last few years, I wouldn't have had an opportunity to work with those. But, I think they'll, look, I feel I can bring in excitement and enthusiasm to the job. And I'm hoping that they'll all buy into it and go with us. And I'm trained to what I really want to do there is create a lot of leaders and among the group. And, I suppose I've learned that over the years as well, that you have to create leaders on the team, and you also have to have a good, strong management team, which and delegate responsibilities to them and to the players.
Can you talk to us about your management team, Shane? Have you put people in place yet?
Look, there's a few things working behind the scenes, Kieran. I don't really want to, I suppose, confirm anything yet, because some of them are committed to other things at the moment. But I've had a lot of very good and constructive conversations with people over the last few weeks. I suppose, look, the fear was that if you put all these names down on paper and you don't get the job, like what happened in Kerry last week, you had a dream team of management going for that job and they didn't get it. And, how do those guys feel now? And, Donny Buckley was down on that ticket and he's on Monaghan ticket and just things like that. So I've been very careful, I suppose, about things like that. But look, I think the management team I'll be putting in place will be, the names I'm dealing with at the moment are top class individuals from around the county that will will put Cork in the best possible situation to be successful. And I think all those, I suppose there's people I wouldn't have worked with before, people I known from before. I'm not, once I can work with these people and put the best team in place, I'm prepared to search the county high and wide for the best talent available, both on the management team and the staff. And I think I think when the macro team is finalised, it will be very impressive. I'd be very confident about that, Kieran. And look, once I'm in a position to confirm it, I'll do that as soon as I can. But as I said, to be fair to those people, I don't want to make any announcements yet, and to make sure we've everything in place before we do it, because I think you can make announcements about things and maybe they don't work out, and then you kind of, everybody looks foolish then. But when the announcements are ready to go, look, we'll be ready to go, and I think people will be impressed by the management team that will be in place.
You're inheriting a Cork squad that's not a million miles away from scaling Everest, from topping top of the tree again, becoming All-Ireland champions. Like, if you look at this year's semi-final, like that capitulation towards the end left me, threw me also what me did to Dublin in the final. So when you're looking at the Cork players you have now in this Cork team, how excited are you by the potential of this team, and how close do you think they are to this Cork team is becoming All-Ireland champions again?
Look, there's huge potential there. We've been still underage for the last, dominated underage titles, with John Cleary in charge, and even the last couple of years with Joe there doing it. There's huge talent there, and I think their semi-final display up until the last 2 minutes was perfect nearly, and I think that was commented on the Sunday game, that on that night, of the game, that it looked like the Cork had a very good plan for Meath, and Dublin didn't have a plan for Meath. And I think, look, in fairness to Efi and the lads, they were 2 minutes away from being in an All-Ireland final, the 6-7 points up. It would have been a comfortable win. Would they have won the final? Look, that's a different story. I don't know, but there's very little between. I think Dublin were coming back a bit to the pack this year, and unfortunately, Cork didn't get the job done the semi-final. And I think it's going to be very, very exciting. I think they're not that far away. That's the reality of it, I suppose, Kieran. It's a bit like if you look at the Kerry men's job, it's Sam Maguire is all. That's what's expected. Kilkenny hurlers, tip hurlers, hurlers now. It's the ultimate prize is what's expected in Cork ladies football, and they were at the top for so long, and it feels like a drought at the moment. But they were so close to it, on a number of occasions, including this year. So I think the raw material is there, the potential is there. I hope I can add a few little things to it to make it a little bit better, and that's not being disrespectful to anybody who's been there before. We're all as managers, we think we can add that bit extra. So I'm hugely excited about it. I think there's serious talent there. I think there's plenty still in the players who were there, even the older players. They have plenty left to offer. They have plenty left in the tank. I think probably lockdown helped a few of the older players like Kira and things like that as well. They got that extra time off, and look, there's so much potential there. It's hugely exciting. Look, I said it already. I'm buzzing about it, and I'm trying to keep my feet in the ground about the moment, Kieran. I can just make sure we're making the right decisions with regards to everything.
Those experienced players, like you mentioned there, Ciara O'Sullivan, Orla Finn, Martine O'Brien, they've been there, they've done that, doing fantastic servants to Cork ladies football. Is it so important that they stay on now? And I know there's no talk that they're going to step aside, but that they are there next year and the year after, because they have such important roles to play.
Yeah, look, I think it's hugely important that you've got these experienced players, and I think I've learned that, I suppose, with Mourneabbey especially. We have a cohort there of very experienced girls who help the younger players develop up, and they set the standards. And like the likes of Ciara there, Orla Finn, Martina, like Darren as well, who might be a bit younger but has so much experience. Aisling Hutchins, like that core group of players there have so much football played. They were there when All-Irelands were winning one every year, and I think it's so important that they stay involved, and help bring these younger players through, because they set the standard. And it's very hard for a management all the time to be, I suppose, setting standards. It's down to the players, because when they cross the white line, we have to empower them to be the players and leaders that we want them to be. So, look, I'm hoping there'll be no one step away. I'm going to open this up, Kieran, to everybody in the county to get involved. There's no doors going to be shut to any player from whatever club they are, whether they're playing Junior D or whatever. It doesn't bother me. If we feel they're good enough to be involved in the Cork panel, we're going to be looking at that. And we're also trying to look at something exciting as well. We're trying to maybe help bridge the gap between minor and senior level, because there is a gap, especially in physical terms. And we're hoping maybe to work with maybe a development squad there. You have that in men's, you have your under 20 squad. We don't have that opportunity in ladies football at the moment. And something I'd love to see revived. There was a senior B there years ago, and I remember lots of players coming off the senior B. That bridge they were bridging the gap between minor and senior, and they came in and helped them and winning all those All-Irelands. So look, that's something we're definitely looking at. That's in one of the plans that I have. So look, we'll sit down and look at with the county board about that, and hopefully we can get in. There was so many good young players there. We don't want them to fall away, because they all can play on the senior panel. There's a lot of minors the last few years. Even this year's crowd. We need to bridge that gap. We need to keep those talented players involved in Cork ladies football, and that's our plan.
You talk about talented young players straight away. I think of Erica O'Shea from Macroom, came on the scene last year, stepped up straight away. So there is that pool of talent out there in Cork at the moment. So you're hoping to dip into that and bring those into the setup and let them find their feet at senior level and then introduce them.
Absolutely, but I suppose the reality is, Erica's probably an exception there the last few years. Emer Scally, I think, was the last minor to start for Cork in a game, a championship game, or come on in a championship game. That was back in 2014. So Erica has 2 years under her belt now. But there is a huge gap. But Erica, I suppose Erica was lucky that she is supremely talented, but she also was probably physically able. But there is a gap, Kieran, and I think we have to be aware of that we can't throw these guys in, or the girls in at the deep end and expect them to perform at adult level, because there is a gap, and it's not club level, and it's not it's not the lower grades inter-county. So we're hoping to bridge the gap, and if those girls are ready, look, I'm going to give many players as possible a chance in the league. I suppose not put too much emphasis on winning a league, and I'm saying that straight out. I want to get players out of that league with plenty of game time under their belts, so that we have a good panel going into the championship and going forward. Like, look, it's a 3-year thing, but I'm not thinking 3 years down the line. I want to be the best we can be this year. And I think by improving our performances and bringing those younger girls through, but I suppose the big problem with younger girls coming through, Kieran, is they've been very successful at minor level, but they're coming into a squad that has, I suppose, filled with maybe 10 years of minors, and I suppose it's a difficult thing for players to deal with, emotionally and mentally, that they were on the minor team, they were stars in the minor team, and now they're coming into a senior panel and they're struggling for game time. And that's very hard for them to deal with because, they've been the stars all the way up along. But I think we need to work on that with them, develop them physically, and I suppose develop their tactical awareness. And look, there's been great work done underage. And I think we just need to tap into that, make sure they're physically ready, make sure they're tactically aware, and I suppose their decision making is good enough for senior level. And then I think we can be very successful and build a very strong squad going forward. And I think that's the huge, one of my big goals, I think, is to make sure that if it's 3 years or whatever, when I'm gone out of this job, that there's a serious pool of talent there that can be used straight away, and that you're only dipping in 1 or 2 minors in or 3 minors in every year, because I think there is a huge gap, I think, Kieran, between the minor football and senior and county football.
When we see what that Meath team did this year, coming from intermediate last year, winning the All-Ireland intermediate title, straight up into senior and winning the senior title, it's really after shaking up ladies football, because all of a sudden we have these newcomers who have gone to the very, very top in their first season. Do you think that's very encouraging for all the teams out there? Like, obviously, Cork and Dublin have been 2 of the top teams for the last couple of years, but I'm thinking of the Armaghs, the Galways, the Mayos, that they'll be thinking, no, Jesus, if we get our house in order, we can do what we achieved. So could we be looking at a much more competitive ladies football scene next year?
Yeah, look, I definitely think so. I think it's going to, I've said this a few people already this week, that I think that it's going to be a very open championship for the next couple of years. I don't think there's going to be an absolute dominant force, because, what Meath did proves to everybody else that, you can do it. No, look, you need things to go your way as well. And I suppose even they lost the final in 2019 to Tipperary, and Tip won that by 5 points. And, the championship in 2021, Meath are winning All-Ireland and Tipperary are in a relegation battle, so I think losing the final in 2019 probably helped Meath, because they had another year to develop it at intermediate level. Then they bounced into this year straight off the back of last December. They were on the crest of a wave, and look, things went right for them too. But I think when things are going your way, you need to be in the position to take it. And I think Meath put themselves in that position, and they played without fear this year. And I suppose, look, they're up there now to be shot at. People know what Meath are about the way they are now, the way they play the game. But I think every single team is going to take that, that belief now. And if Meath can do it, we can do it. So that means it'll be a lot harder for, I suppose, the so-called big guns like ourselves in Dublin had been the big guns for the last few years, getting to the finals, in majority of the years. I think, that's going to make our job harder. And look, that's exciting as well, because, everybody feels they've got a good chance next year. And I think the championship is going to be super competitive.
Final question. So, Shane, you're inheriting a team that Aoife Fitzgerald has had for the last 6 years, and he oversaw a transition from that great Cork team, and he's handing over a Cork team, a young Cork team that's in a very good position. So, as a new manager going in, how do you try and stamp your authority on this quite early, as in or how does it work? To make this the Shane Ronayne team, because it's the start of a new era.
Yeah, look, I suppose I'm not going to come in and sweep out everything, because, there's been savage work done in the last few years. And it was a very difficult time for Aoife to be coming in, because you're following, the greatest ladies football manager, one of the greatest GA managers that there ever was, the late Amy. And, they won in All-Ireland the first year, and probably people think it was going to continue on then long. But when you lost all the caliber of those big players, like Angela Walsh and Breed, Breed played Breed one more year, Deirdre O'Reilly, you hadn't Rena for too long more, you hadn't Breed. These were serious, some of the best ladies footballers ever play. So there's been fantastic work done in that transitional period. I feel like, that I can just add that maybe that a bit extra. And I think it's maybe a new voice as well. It might be the exact same thing that Aoife and the lads, Paddy and all were saying to them, but it might be just coming from a little bit of a different perspective. Most of us see the game, the same way. And I think I just have different ideas, maybe the way things should be done. Like, but I think it's not going to be, you know, me going in and clearing out the cupboard and saying, all right, lads, we'll start again. It's not going to be that way. There's going to be incremental changes made by me, and I suppose we'll bring different ideas to the job, you know, whoever's coming with me. And I think that's what it's really going to be about, like, you know, getting them to maybe change little things. There's going to be no big surgery done to that Cork, because I think it's a very, very strong squad, and I don't think we'll be discarding players just for the sake of it. But, you know, look, there's always going to be a turnover of players as well, Kieran, and I think, you know, what we want to make sure we have this year is the very, very best squad available to us, whoever they are in the county. As I said, I'm open to anybody coming into that squad. As long as we're getting the best players in there, I'd feel confident in my own ability to get the best out of them, and the ability of my backroom team to get the ability out of them. But I think, you know, there's not going to be sweeping changes, but there will be a different change of, you know, different ideas and things like that, you know, because we all have our own ideas, and hopefully my ideas will work and get us over the line, because we are not far away, and, you know, the lads have done a great work there. So I'm not going to be tearing up the script and saying, lads, you know, what was going on the last few years was wrong. Every manager is going to make changes, and that's the way I'm going to do as well. But there's going to be no major surgery done to that team.
Oh, fantastic, Shane. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. Congrats again on your appointment, and best of luck in the future.
Thanks very much, Kieran.
We all have dreams, but dreams by their very nature can be difficult to achieve. That's where Access Credit Union comes in. Whether it's going to college, owning a car, or building your dream home, your local credit union can help you to fulfill your dreams. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Enniskeane Camogie got their debut season in the senior ranks off to the perfect start when they overcame Douglas on a scoreline of 23 points to 110 a number of weeks back. Having come up from intermediate as champions this season, they were a bit of an unknown quantity, but so far they've more than held their own and have made quite the impression at the top level. We'll be joined by Vice Captain Aisling O'Driscoll in a few moments, but Kieran, first, give us some backstory on this Enniskeane journey.
This is one of the great West Cork sports stories of the last couple of years, because with every great sports story, you need some heartbreak along the way. And this Enniskeane Camogie team had their heartbreak. They lost a couple of intermediate finals there, going back the last couple of years, but they finally got over the line last year. They won the 2020 County Intermediate Camogie Championship to become county champions, but the big reward for that was Enniskeane were going up to the senior ranks for the first time in their history. And lovely little side note is that it coincided with Enniskeane's 25th anniversary last year. So on that landmark occasion for the club, they became a senior club. And so for Enniskeane Camogie to get to that top level, it's huge. And Camogie is getting stronger and stronger in Enniskeane. Last year, for the first time, they fielded a second adult team as well. So that just shows you that the numbers are good there. And they obviously have their underage teams going quite well too. So they've played in the senior league this year. But the weekend before last, they played our first ever senior Camogie championship game against Douglas, who were county senior semi-finalists last year. But Enniskeane won, I think it was 23 points to 110. An incredible win. Like their first game up senior to win like that was superb. Tara Sheehan got 7 points. Orla Cronin, who's well known for her Cork exploits, got 6 points. And they had a fierce spread of scores. So the reward for that now is a place in the next round, where it's the little matter of last year's beaten county finalists in Enniskeane this weekend. It doesn't get any easier, but that is life at senior level. But that's what Enniskeane Camogie wants. And as you hear now from Aisling O'Driscoll, they can't wait to take on Enniskeane this weekend. Delighted now to be joined on the Star Sport podcast by Enniskeane Camogie Vice Captain Aisling O'Driscoll to chat about Enniskeane's rise to the senior ranks. And not only that, they've already made their mark there with a very impressive win against Douglas. So I'm delighted to have you on the podcast, Aisling.
Hi, Kieran. Thanks very much for having me. It's a great privilege to be on here.
Just mentioned there that win against Douglas. So that was the weekend before last. And talk about announcing your arrival in style. Like Douglas were semi-finalists last year, and Enniskeane just up from intermediate, first year ever in the senior championship. And he went out and he beat them quite well. So just talk to me beforehand, the week leading up to that game against Douglas, what was that like in Enniskeane camp?
I suppose the week leading up, even I suppose a couple of weeks before it, There was a great buzz around the place, you know. As a team, I suppose we were preparing well for, like, you know, we were in for a challenge and we knew that. But it was a great buzz, and I suppose all the girls are, you know, we've spent, I suppose, years trying to get up senior. Like, we've been thereabouts getting over intermediate for years. And I suppose as our first senior match up there, like, we just wanted, you know, it was exciting. Like, we wanted to be up there, and I suppose we made our mark there as well by, I suppose, having a good team display against Douglas, and it was a good, I suppose, marker for our first senior match up there. So yeah, it was great excitement around the place. Yeah.
It was a 23 points to 110 wins, which is what that's a 10-point win. But what I was impressed by, Aisling, is the spread of the scores. Obviously, people thinking Enniskeane, they might think of Orla Cronin like an all-star, but there's so much more to this Enniskeane team. Like, Tara Sheehan got 7 points, Emer Bryan got 4 points, Sinead Hurley, Laura Corcoran, and Orla Coughlin got 2 points each. Like, that was a fierce spread of scores.
Yeah, like, it's brilliant. I suppose, as you said there, Orla Cronin, like, you know, like, she's an unbelievable player, and I suppose she will be our top scorer in I suppose all our matches and throughout our campaigns and stuff like that. But it was absolutely brilliant to see the other girls coming through, and like, I think all our forwards scored, I think, from play, or they all scored anyway. So it's an absolute brilliant, I suppose, achievement to not just see that we've one threat, but like all our forwards are threats up there. So it was brilliant for them to get on the scoreboard, and I suppose not only 1 point, but just two points upwards. So it was brilliant for them as well. Yeah, so it's great.
Since Enniskeane won the intermediate title last year, and you knew that you were going to be playing senior, I presume you were counting down the weeks and the days till your first game. So when that game came in and you had such an impressive win, confidence-wise, that must be a huge shot in the arm.
Oh, it is brilliant. Yeah, like, it is. It's great. Like, and I suppose for the younger girls as well, coming up and having our first senior match, like, it's a brilliant thing to have the confidence behind us, you know. But like, I suppose we did play well as a team as well there, but there is things that we need to work on, and we'll work on that as we go forward into the next match, you know. Like, we've nothing won yet. It was only our first round. But we definitely will work on it, and I suppose build on it, but use that confidence as well going forward. I suppose it showed us that, you know, we are at the stage, or we're at the level that we can play senior hurling, and to use that now and going forward, and to use that confidence going forward, and continue on our campaign.
This is a level that Enniskeane have wanted to get to for a long, long time, and you've had your fair share of heartbreak. You were heartbreak the most, losing a couple of county intermediate finals before winning last year. So to finally be up in the senior ranks, like, it's a huge achievement for the team and for the club. Like, it must be a great time to be part of Enniskeane Camogie Club.
Yeah, it is a great time to be part of it. I think when we went up senior last year, so we won it, we were 25 years in existence, so that was a massive marker for the club. But as you said, like, we've had our heartbreaks, like, we've been thereabouts for the last 4 years trying to get up. And I suppose what drove us on this year, and what is driving us on, is, like, we felt, I suppose last year, is that, like, we knew what the heartache was, like, what it felt like. And we just, last year, we did not want to leave it behind us. And this year, now that we've been trying so hard to get up there, I suppose, like, in our eyes, we should have been maybe up senior a couple of years ago. So we know that we're well capable to play at that level, and we just want to show that now and build on it and keep on going. Yeah.
It's just great for the club in general to be up in the senior ranks, because last year you had a second adult team for the first time, so the numbers are quite strong. So even for young girls on the way up, they can now aspire to play on a senior team. So you'd hope that kind of that old adage, success breeds success, so it'll just kind of drive things forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose that's a marker to the work that's going on, you know, in the younger years as well. Like, you know, there's massive support, like, there's great people getting involved in the club, like, at every training session. Like, we've big numbers, both from, like, the younger years, like under 8s, under 6s, all the ways up, and there's loads of people getting involved as well. So it's a massive thing for the club. The club at the moment is thriving, and hopefully that'll keep on going, and they'll keep on pushing on our senior team anyway for years to come.
And even for some of the club members, like even one of the coaches, Dermot Curtin, like, Jesus, that man has put so much into Enniskeane Camogie over the years, and he's finally helped get the adult team up to senior level. Like, it must be great for him as well.
It is, definitely. Dermot is definitely the backbone, organising all our matches and everything. He definitely is. And look, I suppose it was great for him as well when we did get up senior, and for him to see it coming from the ground all the ways up. Like, it's a massive achievement for him. And I can only say that he's definitely delighted with it anyway.
So, and it's like, obviously at senior level, there's no easy games here, like we just talked about earlier.
Yeah.
We beat Douglas, last year's semi-finalists. Next up is Enniskeane, last year's beaten finalists. So that game is on this weekend. So what are your thoughts ahead of that one?
I suppose we know that we're in for a challenge. As you said, like every senior match is going to be a challenge. But I suppose we'll use what we've learned from our match previously, and we have the full week to prepare now, both physically and mentally. We know what we're in for, I suppose. So definitely like getting our heads right, our bodies right, do our trainings, do our hard work, and go in and I suppose play as well as we played and give it 100% the next day, and hopefully we'll come out the other side of it. And
like we said earlier too, you're going to take so much confidence after beating Douglas. So if you can harness that with the learnings you took from that first game as well, it should put you in a good place to really rattle Enniskeane.
Yeah, look, I suppose hopefully like we're not just here, I suppose, to compete. I suppose like we want to be competitive. We are going to be competitive, and we don't by any manner of means want our campaign to end on Saturday, because it is knockout, I suppose. But as you said, Enniskeane, like they were semi-final or finalists last year, so it's not going to be anyway easy. We know we're up for a challenge, but hopefully now, if we play up to our potential, that we will get over the line eventually. Yeah.
Did you notice any difference even in the intensity and the speed of the game when you played Douglas the last day compared to what you faced against the other teams in intermediate over the last couple of seasons?
Yeah, massively. Like I suppose even at intermediate, like the standard is very, very high. But I suppose even all the challenge matches we've played, before the Douglas game, but definitely in the Douglas game, like the speed of, I suppose, not only hurling, but the speed of thought as well, like the speed that you do things, it's massive. Like there's a massive difference there, before you know it, like there's somebody else around you, or, like you're going to get your hook or your block in, or you're going to get hooked or blocked. Like it is a massive, like it's the speed, and I suppose that's something we've had to adjust with, but that's going with, working harder at training and bringing up the intensity of training. And by every girl bringing a little bit more to training, then that's pushing on and getting you match ready and getting you to that senior level.
And the Enniskeane Camogie's success story, it always kind of ties in with the success of Carbery Camogie in recent years. Obviously, Orla Cronin and Nicky Coppage are doing superb stuff with the Cork senior team. But now we have Enniskeane up in the senior ranks, Mitchelstown are up there. The Carbery Camogie team is back this year. So it's a good time for Carbery Camogie as well.
Yeah, it is a good time for it. And I suppose we're showing that, we can hurl past, the viaduct as well, that. But like it is a massive thing, and like hopefully it'll keep on going. Like the more clubs that can get up senior, the better. But even down the lower grades as well, like there's clubs coming on, which is brilliant to see as well.
Oh, it's a great time for Carbery Camogie, and it's a great time for Enniskeane Camogie. Best of luck this weekend against Enniskeane, Ashley, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Kieran. Thank you.
We all have dreams, but dreams by their very nature can be difficult to achieve. That's where Access Credit Union comes in. Whether it's going to college, owning a car, or building your dream home, your local credit union can help you to fulfill your dreams. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Kieran, before we wrap up this landmark 150th episode of the Star Sport podcast for the 150th time, why don't you give us a quick preview of what readers can expect in this Thursday's Southern Star Sports section?
And for the 150th time, Jack, I'm going to say this week's sports section is not to be missed. 28 pages, the best of West Cork sport, and it's GAA heavy because we're deep into the championship season, and we're just after a very heavy football championship weekend, and we've huge coverage of the county football championship. So just some of the headlines: Castlehaven and Clonakilty are both already through to the knockout stages of the Premier Senior Football Championship. But for Island Rovers and Carbery Rangers, they have relegation worries heading into the final round of group games on October 17. So there's full coverage of all those games in this week's Southern Star. We also go big on Donnies and Skib and Bandon and Ballingeary in their Senior A Football Championship group, because Donnies beat Skib last weekend to throw that group wide open, and Bandon beat Ballingeary too, and Bandon out top that group. So we've 2 pages on that group alone in this Thursday's Southern Star. Looking closer to home, the Carbery Junior A Football Championship had 5 games last weekend, and the big news is the champions are gone. The Kings are gone. Kilmackeby, have been dethroned. Their great rivals, Tide McCorrick, got the better of them in Rosscarbery on Sunday evening. So we've a full match report, pictures and reaction from that, and all a roundup of the games in the Carbery Junior Football Championship. Clonakilty and Kinsale battle out in the Ladies Football Championship, and we've a report from that and a roundup of the Ladies Football action, as well as Mitchelstown bound out of the County Senior Camogie Championship. And there's more besides that, because Paul O'Donovan, we have him in this week's Southern Star again, and people know Paul O'Donovan quite well, the Olympic gold medalist, best rower in the world. But he took to the cross-country circuit last weekend, Jack. He's quick on water, but he's also quite quick on land. So we've have the report of how Paul O'Donovan got on in the novice men's cross-country championships in Riverstick last Sunday. Is there nothing this man can't do? So you've that and a lot more in Thursday's Southern Star.
Yeah, and as Kieran mentioned, that will be in shops across West Cork and beyond from Thursday morning. But if you can't make it to the shop to pick up a physical edition, don't forget you can always subscribe online. Just go to www.southernstar.ie/e-paper and you can read all that West Cork sporting goodness for less than €2 per week. Just such good value. And you don't even have to pay for the Star Sport podcast. We're here for free every week. 150 episodes in, an archive that could keep you going for days. If you want to check out the archive, just subscribe on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, to the Southern Star on YouTube. All the episodes are there, free to view or to listen to. You don't want to miss them. Paul O'Donovan, as Kieran mentioned, has been on several times. Fintan McCarthy, a fellow gold medalist, has been on several times. Phil Healy, Ireland's fastest woman, has probably been on more than anyone. She's a friend of the show. She's been on 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 times. We've had Brian Hurley. We've had
Keith Cronin.
Keith Cronin.
And just on that, before we go, we're thinking there about our favourite episodes. Last year, after Dunmanway Town won the Beamish Cup, we got 3 of the players on for a chat about the game. I think Captain Stephen O'Donovan, who was a bit emotional because he was heading off to London the following morning, and with Mark Buckley, and I think it was Cathal Daly, the goal scorer. And that's one that stands out to me, because the beauty of the podcast, it's just great crack. It was a 4-way conversation about Dunmanway Town, and you treat them with lads open their hearts to each other over Zoom, because they probably wouldn't say it in person, but the fact they were in 3 different locations, that they were opening their hearts to each other. So that's one to check out. But like Jack said there, the archive is there, and it's well worth going through, because even the chat with Padraig Harrington from earlier this year,
Dublin's Padraig Harrington,
who gave us 45 minutes of his time to talk about his connections to Beara. And it's, even right now, it's well worth to listen, because a lot of these podcasts, they stand the test of time. So I'd recommend, if you have a spare half hour, just sift through that archive of podcasts and listen to the best of West Cork.
Yeah, and if you're a rugby fan as well, there's an absolute plethora of rugby episodes. And if you like to be in the know and be ahead of your friends and family with all the kind of inside track on West Cork's greatest up-and-coming sports stars, there's several interviews there with Darragh McElhenney, a star of Irish athletics in the future. So listen to the episodes with him, and then when he comes on the senior scene in later years, you'll say, oh, I've been following Darragh since day dot. So that's the kind of thing you can do with our archive. You can be ahead of the game. You can be in the know. You want to know more than your friends, family. You want to go down the pub and tell them how much you know about these sports stars. The Star Sport podcast is the place to learn. But anyway, let's finish there, Kieran. Thanks for listening to the 150th episode of the Star Sport podcast. We'll be back with the 151st episode next week. If you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Slán Tamil.